Good evening and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy over here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, folks, tonight on Saturday night, which is unusual for Ed and I, we usually do Friday night, Friday forensics, but Saturday night we wanted to come live and shake it up a little bit with you. Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer case. What happens if Asa Ellerup is involved with this crime in any way, shape, or form? With the recent events 10 days ago showing her with the Peacock network signing that $1 million deal, what happens to this if things change? And we know it's an active and ongoing investigation, Ed. I wanted to get quickly your thoughts on it. But first, we got to say thank you to our Patreon supporters, the channel members, the folks who buy us cups of coffee. Heck, we get caffeinated all day, every day. And thank you to everyone who buys those cups of coffee, folks who watch the replay and leave us comments down below, because as you know, Ed and I engage in that comment section. So it's a chance for you to chat it up with us after the live is over. But Ed, let's go right over to you and throw you into the hot on the hot seat. What's your thoughts on Asa Ellerup getting signing this contract with the Peacock network? It's something around $1 million, and her attorney gets 400,000, give or take some, and the attorneys for her children, her adult children, get somewhere around 400,000. So you're looking at close to a multi-million-dollar deal. Thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. The whole thing, the divorce was very quick. All right. Then there was the transfer of the house. Okay. And then now there's this. And the attorney, it's got to be more than $1 million, because if the two attorneys are getting 400,000 each, that's 800,000. What, she's left with 200,000?
No, she's getting $1 million. They're getting 400 apiece.
Okay. So not from her cut, directly from the Peacock.
Correct. For participating is what I read.
So they were heavily involved in getting her this contract, is what I'm hearing.
Is what it sounds like to me. And we're reasonable people, and everybody in the chat, I know I'm looking at the chat and I'm watching it before we went live. A lot of people aren't happy with this, and they feel that, we have 4 victims: Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Costello. And that's what we're referring to. There's a total of 11, but he stands charged with 3, and we are waiting for the upgraded charges to be served on him, as District Attorney Tierney said at that press conference. And another funny thing, Ed, that I found out is that while looking and researching this thing, on the court date, miraculously, DA Ray Tierney, held a 10-minute press conference where he was like a peacock, spreading his feathers apart and speaking to the media for 10 minutes. Did you catch that as well?
Yes.
Haven't heard anything from him in a while, and now that Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison is out of the picture, he seems to be wanting to talk quite a bit about the case again. So
it just seems to me that this was all a plan. Should he get convicted, to protect those assets from getting, maybe have to lose those assets to the families of the victims in a wrongful death lawsuit.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the same way, along the lines of how an attorney would think, and how they would want to protect any potential assets, because attorneys are in the business to make money, not to lose money. So it's just, for me, sickening, because we have these victims' families who, for so many years are looking for justice for their loved ones. And now to see the alleged perpetrator here, the person who stands, going to trial and is indicted on murder for 3 out of the 4 Gilgo 4s. We're looking at potentially, DA Tierney was alluding to that very shortly, and they keep saying that. They even said that when he was arrested. Very shortly, we're going to be upgrading or possibly adding the 4th murder charge. But those families are looking for justice, and it's an insult. It's adding insult to injury, a slap in the face, salt on the wound, whatever you want to say, to see the alleged perpetrator of these crimes. Okay, obviously innocent until proven guilty, Ed and chat here. But how do you think that feels for these families that are surviving members? We know they're sitting there watching this stuff, and they're like, "What? We may or may not be struggling financially, or what? I don't know what their financial situations are, but if they're struggling and they see this, I mean, this is unbelievable." I want to go ahead, Ed.
All I can think of is back with the O.J. Simpson trial, where Nicole Simpson and I think it was Ron Goldman's family couldn't get justice in the criminal court, but they took O.J. to civil court and they won. But I don't think they got a dime of that money because he moved to Florida.
Yeah, they got nothing.
Yeah, he moved to Florida to protect his assets.
So sad. I looked at Ron Goldman's father and his sister while that was going on, and it was just, and afterwards, it was just so sad to see them go through it. And you look at these 4 families, there's so many different parts to those families, both sides, aunts, uncles, mother's side, father's side. Crime and Wine, we're going to get to that. Thank you for the super chat. She says it's been said that he is writing to the Happy Face Killer. It was more like the Happy Face Killer wrote to Rex Heuermann, is the way I read it. The Happy Face Killer wrote a letter to Rex Heuermann. It's alleged. I don't know if that's 100% confirmed. And he was asking him or pleading with him to confess to these killings. But thank you for that super chat. Let's take a listen to a little piece from News Nation.
See what prosecutors have on their client, which they accuse him of killing 3. Okay. Right now, the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer has appeared in court in New York. Rex Heuermann is charged with the murders of 3 women who were killed more than a decade ago. He's pleaded not guilty. Heuermann is also the prime suspect in a 4th murder. Laura Ingle live outside the courthouse in Riverhead, New York, with the very latest. Laura, what happened in the courtroom? Good morning. Today was really a conference, not a hearing, but it was an important court appearance for the suspect in this case, Rex Heuermann, as for the first time we saw his wife appear in court. She sat in the 3rd row, Asa Ellerup. I think we have some video of her arriving. There was a huge press scrum of people trying to get images of her. We've never seen her appear before at court to either support her husband or just to look on. But at least today, we did see her arrive for this very brief hearing. And really the matter at hand came between the district attorney, the defense attorney, and the judge, talking about the discovery matters in this case. And Mike Brown, Rex Heuermann's attorney, asking for 75 pages of discovery, also asking for lab requests from the Suffolk County Crime Lab that they want to go through. Of course, this is very vital to their defense. They want to see what prosecutors have on their client, which they accuse him of killing 3 of the Gilgo 4 victims in this case. The district attorney talked about the discovery that has already been handed over, and there certainly has been a lot of it. Remember, this case has been going on for years and years and years. So there is a lot of evidence, a lot of notes, and specifically about the search warrants that happened at the home of Rex Heuermann in Massapequa Park. 13,000 photos were taken during the execution of a search warrant, and those photos have been turned over, but the defense wants more. So as we move forward in this long case, we also heard from both attorneys today outside of court that the grand jury investigation into the 4th victim of the Gilgo 4 is still ongoing. A lot of reporters here and people want to know, will he be charged with that 4th victim? The answer is just we don't know as of right now. But now we have another court date to look forward to. That will be February 6th. So ideally, both sides will be able to get that discovery. Rex Heuermann will have a chance to go over it, and then we'll move forward. And it sounds like we're going to start seeing his wife, who filed for divorce just days after his arrest, Asa Ellerup, who was trailed today by a documentary film crew, by the way. It sounds like she's going to be arriving here at court moving forward. That is not yet confirmed, but that's kind of the sense that we got here today at court in Riverhead. Marnie?
Laura, does that mean that she is there to support him? I know that she showed up in jail to visit him recently. Was there any interaction between the two of them in court that you saw?
So I looked really closely, and she was in the third row. I was in the second. And I watched Rex Heuermann come out. And what was really interesting, you know that he's a big guy, right? So he was handcuffed behind his back. And he's such a large man that they actually had to use 2 sets of handcuffs so that they could connect. And he remained handcuffed the entire time. He came out, he looked at the judge, and just as he was leaving, he turned around and looked in the gallery, and he saw his wife sitting there. And I looked at her face. She gave a very slight smile. I didn't see him smile at her, but they certainly looked at each other. They locked eyes before he left. And then the other thing that happened today after court, Mike Brown, his attorney, was asked about her being here. And he said that she does not feel that he is capable of these crimes. She believes he did not do this. So that's why I think one of the first times that we have heard that from his attorney. So a couple of big developments here.
Very interesting. There's many takeaways from that, Ed. And I wanted to go to you quickly about the searches at the house. They said there was 13,000 photos. Now, you are a crime scene expert, and this house, when they were tearing it apart for what, 13 days or 12 days, whatever it was, don't quote me on the days, folks. It might be more, it might be less. But it was a lot of days. It was double digits. 13,000 photos. We looked at the bathroom when they took and they cut apart the tub, and they will go in and looking possibly into the drains. There's a lawsuit potentially against Suffolk and Nassau County about her house being ripped apart. From a crime scene detective's perspective, 13,000 photos, it's a lot. But there's also a lot of stuff that they collected from inside that house. Hairs, fibers. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, shit. They were there for so long. You would expect that every little thing they're going to do and everything they're going to touch, they're going to document before they touch it and after they touch it. So, it doesn't surprise me in the least that there's 13,000 photographs. I mean, they're going to dot their I's and cross their T's. And in your basic forensic photography at crime scenes, start off with long-range photographs, medium range with scales and numbers, close-ups with scales and numbers of all the pertinent evidence that you are going to document and collect and package and send for analysis. So, every little thing has to be documented. Every I has to be dotted. Every T has to be crossed. And that's just the photos. Then there's the photo logs. You have to write all those photographs out in a log. You put the position that the photographer was when they took the photo, the direction the camera was facing, the description of what is being photographed, so that anybody who reads that description can understand where the photographer was standing, what they're looking at, and the direction the camera is pointing. And so then you correlate that with the sketch, because that information on where the evidence is located is also on the sketch. There's a lot to be done here. It's very tedious and it's methodical. You have to do step by step by step, and there's no skipping steps. Yeah, and people, everybody wants answers, right? We talk about when we refer to Asa Ellerup and possibly what her involvement is. Attorney John Ray, who's been fighting for a long time, and listen, he's got fans and he's got haters and he's got everybody in between. But John Ray has been there from the beginning, and he's been fighting for the victims and their families, and he stuck by them, and he stuck with this case. He's the only attorney that's been there from virtually the beginning. He had 2 sworn affidavits from a cab driver / banker by day, cab driver by night, and some of the things that are mentioned in there are damning. We know that the police commissioner acknowledged it in a press conference with him, and we know that Asa Ellerup's hair was found, 3 strands of her hair
were wrapped around these victims. And, you
Well,
know,
two of the victims.
okay, two of the victims, but three strands of hair. Thank you for correcting me, Ed. But that in itself, okay, you discussed this in length, you know, could be from transfer, it could be from inside the house. Listen, my wife's hair, today I was in the car with her. I went to the car wash later on in the day. Her hair was in the passenger seat, some of her hairs. It happens. But the bottom line is that this case has to be investigated thoroughly. And the police commissioner said it. We have to follow through on all of these allegations and make sure we vet them. So there's still a lot of work that's happening, and there's a secret grand jury that's still convened, and it's supposedly being wrapped up very shortly. But we've been hearing that also from the beginning, and this secret grand jury is still investigating, as far as we know.
Well, can I just back up just a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. Hold on a second. Something's wrong here. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine, and I hear Kara too.
Okay. Hold on.
What do you got going on?
Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know. Maybe somebody's in front of the house and Kara's barking to protect the house.
No. You said you wanted to back up.
Oh, yes. I wanted to back up a little bit because, you know, the news reporter was making statements about why she was at the courthouse. Right? Well, guess what? You said it at the end of your report there. There's a documentary. She's being paid to be there.
Yeah. And the funny part about it, and thank you for bringing that up, Ed. I mean, we can't say that enough. And I think everybody in the chat, and by the way, thank you for the super chat that came in. I see Global Heat sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that. Greatly appreciate the support from everybody. And thank you to the moderators for being here. The bottom line is that Asa Ellerup filed for divorce some 6 or 9 days after Rex Heuermann was arrested in July. She filed for divorce in lightning speed. And a lot of people were like, whoa. And a lot of people were like, hey, listen, the probable cause affidavit had those pages, you highlighted them, Ed, on those disgusting sexual searches that Rex Heuermann did. They're too vile for us to read here. And we've read them in previous live streams. If you are married, I don't care, 27 or 37 or 87, it doesn't matter how many years you're married together. If you see that your husband, it's alleged that on his cell phone, the data shows that he is searching for those vile subjects, that alone in itself is reason to file for divorce. And I understood that at the time, but I really think that she's under the guise of her attorneys and the advice from her attorney. I think that she was advised to file immediately for financial reasons.
100%. I am 100% on board with that. This sounds like an attorney thing. Attorney advised her, look, you want to protect your assets, you want to protect your property, you get your husband to divorce you immediately. It was uncontested. He did. He signed the papers. They're divorced.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as it went through the filings, and now everything is in her name.
Right.
Now, if she has nothing to do with it, then it would be very difficult for the victims of the families of these murdered victims to go after those assets. Now, having said that, that district attorney, I don't give a shit. He's got to run down those affidavits that were obtained, those 6 affidavits. He's got to run them to the ground. He's got to see if they're valid or if they're not valid. And if they are valid and they can confirm what those witnesses have told under sworn affidavits in depositions, that in fact she knew, she was there when one of those victims was there at the house.
Karen Vergata.
That's right. And they can confirm with the information that's in those affidavits, well, she's not innocent. And then potential charges can be brought against her. Okay, now she is married. She was married to him. And at that time, when you were married, you couldn't force your wife to testify against you. So I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like to speak to a lawyer to see, now that she's divorced, does that still hold true? Or can she now be forced to testify against her husband?
Yeah.
Okay, because now they're exes, right? But that said, if in fact now she gets indicted, say they run it down and they validate those affidavits, the information in the affidavits. And now she potentially gets indicted, say, for
Accessory to murder.
accessory, conspiracy, cover up, helping with the disposal of a body or whatever the case may be. Well, then the Son of Sam law kicks in.
Yeah.
Okay. And any money that she made prior to the Son of Sam law, and she has to be convicted, mind you.
Right.
It's not just arrested. She has to be convicted. Okay. Any monies that she made prior to being convicted, I think they can go after it.
And I'm going to play a little piece from another trial, the Parkland shooter. And I hate to kind of put him on the screen, but I'm citing this because the judge in that case, Elizabeth Shearer, she controlled the bench in that trial. She did a great job, but she cites the Son of Sam.
I am also. I'm
gonna play it, but forgive me for throwing his face up on the screen. We're gonna do it real quick here. But she cites the Son of Sam law because he's convicted of all those murders, and she basically tells him in court, you cannot gain any financial from your crimes. So let's play this.
I am also granting the state's motion under the Florida equivalent of the Son of Sam law, which means, Mr. Cruz, you will not be able to benefit in any way as far as monies are concerned as to the crimes that you committed. In addition, I am going to order the Department of Corrections to garnish the commissary account of Mr. Cruz until all restitution and costs of prosecution and costs of the sheriff's office are paid in full. The Department of Corrections.
It's going to take a long time, but I wanted to play that because that was a very high profile case, obviously a Parkland shooting. The judge took the Florida equivalent and applied it in that case. You're going to hear that when Rex Heuermann is found, if and when he's found guilty in Suffolk County of these crimes, you'll hear the judge rule on that. And again, if Asa Ellerup is found guilty of any involvement in this, that'll negate this whole Peacock deal, and monies would have to be, I'm not 100% sure, and I hate to make these quotes. So something's going to happen where she won't be able to have that money. And I'm sure that they're going to try to get as much footage as they can as possible. And that's why they're rushing all of this. Why do you think she magically all of a sudden wants to show up in court all dolled up in a Mercedes-Benz, according to news reports, and show up at the courthouse all of a sudden? Prior to this, she was telling the news that she was disgusted with everything that was going on with her husband, and she was mortified and she was shocked. It doesn't seem like she's shocked anymore, Ed.
No, because there's a dollar sign at the end of this.
Disgusting. And the only people I feel sorry for, and listen, I do feel sorry for, I'm very empathetic. I'm very sympathetic to certain situations and so forth. But the only people I feel sorry for are the victims' families, the victims and their families and their extended families and their friends and everybody who was friendly with these four victims. And that's all I'm concerned with. So shame. That Peacock network, if I had a subscription to it, I would cancel it. Me personally. I'm not saying everybody should go and cancel their subscription because everyone might feel a different way. But guess what? It's a no bueno for me. If I was paying for the Peacock network, I would say screw off. I mean, it's disgusting. The next thing I want to show is the attorneys for both. Of course, I'm going to show a report for attorneys for both sides, and it involves showing a news piece from News Nation. Give me 2 seconds because this is acting up on me, Ed. Okay, there we go. All right, here we go, folks. So this is the attorney for the adult children of Rex Heuermann.
But a weird court hearing. It was supposed to be routine for the Long Island serial killing suspect, Rex Heuermann, but it was weird because his wife, for the first time, decided to come to a hearing. Okay, and she's struggling financially, understandable, right? but she showed up in a Mercedes, and she was surrounded by a documentary crew. That was all strange. And we thought that would be the big headline yesterday because the hearing was boring. It was scheduling and stuff. However, inside the hearing, she locked eyes with her husband, who she's divorcing 6 days after the arrest, and a giant smile. All multiple media outlets saw this, not just our producer at News Nation, multiple outlets.
I didn't hear one outlet report that. I heard other outlets report that there was no smile. And Macedonio, Bob, the attorney for Asa Ellerup, gets into a little thing with her in the next piece that I'm going to show. It's pretty interesting.
All saw this giant smile that did not leave her face until the media filed out. If this is the guy she's divorcing and he's a serial killing suspect, we're trying to figure out what that was all about. Her lawyer told us last night it was nerves. But there are 2 children who are also affected by this. Victoria is his daughter. She used to work in Rex's Manhattan architecture firm. And Chris is his son. He's been described by the neighbors as a nice guy with special needs. We do know this. They have an attorney, and he joins me now. Ves Matev represents Victoria and Christopher. Ves, thanks for being on. I really appreciate this. What is the relationship with this family, the kids and their dad, and then Asa Ellerup, the wife and her husband?
Well, thank you for having me. I just want to point out to what you said. Speaking of my clients and my clients only, their existence now is as bleak and as hard scrabble as you can imagine. There's no Mercedes, there's no luxury vehicles, there's no European clothes. In fact, one of the things that they're trying to get back, and they filed their notice of claim, are vintage jackets and clothes that they need for the winter. This is no joke. This is not hyperbole. So their lives, as I've said from day one, have been completely upended by this. The road ahead is arduous. It is long, and no matter what happens with
Ed, why would they take vintage jackets and clothes from that house? I got to ask you because you're a crime scene expert.
Well, they're trying to look for. They're going to try to look for fibers from the materials to see if they can match it to any of the suspect fibers that may have been found on the victims or the wrappings, tape, and so forth of the victims. So
hairs and fibers is the reason why they took the
clothing. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me let the rest of this play.
This case, no matter if he's acquitted, convicted on all counts, or something in between, their lives will never be the same. But for my clients, like I said, there's no Maybachs, there's none of that. There is simply putting one foot in front of the other and trying desperately to get back what was unfairly taken from them. So.
I believe you that they're struggling out there in that little house because he was the breadwinner, and they said all along we don't have any income now. So the Mercedes threw us all off. So what's the relationship between Christopher and Victoria and their dad? Have they visited? Have they spoken to him?
They've spoken to him. They have not visited with him. That's something that may be coming down the pike. Obviously, every day, they're reevaluating what they're going to do every day as new information comes out in the media, as the DA releases new evidence, et cetera. So it's not out of the question that they will see him at some point, but as of yet, they have not.
And what about the mom, Asa Ellerup, smiling, a big smile? Like, what's the relationship? She filed for divorce, but then this giant smile. What's going on between the two of them?
Yeah, that I wish I could speculate on that. I'm not going to. She has very capable attorneys. I think Mr. Macedonia was on your show last night. He commented as to that. So I'm not going to.
We're going to play that
wager any hyperbole on that at all. What I can tell you though is again, was a very small cohesive unit, and that still remains in large part as to my two clients. Obviously, again, no one could imagine what happens when the man that you've grown up with and is your father and has raised you is accused of these atrocious acts. And they're only allegations at this point, as we all know. But that's why I keep saying, no matter what happens next, their lives will never be the same. There is no new normal. It's just one day after the other. That's it.
Ves, you're right. They're victims, right? Your clients are victims in all of this. And I sure hope there's not online bullying because that stuff happens. You got to stay in touch with us, okay? And keep.
So there you go, Ed. We hear from the attorney representing the adult children. He stands to earn $400,000, according to news articles that I read. And
what are the kids getting?
I have no idea. Again, if they're even participating, it looks like the mom is doing the main participating. The cameras were following her everywhere she went, and that was clear and apparent when you looked at the footage.
Well, if he's representing the children and he's getting $400,000 from the Peacock, then the kids have to be getting some kind of money.
That's what I would imagine.
Otherwise, he shouldn't be getting any money.
Correct. So there's more that will come out of this. Again, the victims and their families, the four that I listed, those are the people who should be getting this money. And if it was me in that same situation and I was approached, I would just probably decline it. But if I was to accept it, I would give the money or give a majority of that money to those victims' families and keep a very small sliver, if kept any. I probably wouldn't keep any of it, but that's just me. Let's play the attorney for, and this is a testy interview. This is a hot interview, and one where I like what Banfield says here. She goes at him and asks him a really tough question, and in my opinion, and this is just me, Ed, you can have your own opinion, and everybody in the chat can. Bob Macedonio, attorney for Asa Ellerup, outright lies here in my book, and I'm saying it because I can. I watched him. I watched all of his facial expressions when she asked him the questions. Do you know about so much? Let's just listen. Let's take a listen. You guys in the audience, let us know what you think.
And the perfect person to ask is Bob Macedonio. He is the attorney for Asa Ellerup, Rex Heuermann's wife of 27 years. He was in court with Asa today. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming back on the program. It's good to see you again. So can you sort that out for me? It seemed very odd. I really don't understand what's happening between these two.
Well, I can assure you, Asa was not smiling during the court proceedings. There's nothing to smile about. This is certainly nothing funny. She takes these allegations extremely serious. She did make eye contact with Rex for a very small period of time, probably less than 5 seconds. If there was any facial expression, it's out of nervousness. This is the first time she's ever been in a criminal courthouse, whether it be for Rex or for anybody else. Again, nothing comical about it. There was not a prolonged smile on her face. I sat right next to her. She didn't leave my side the entire day.
Yeah, so fair enough.
Nothing funny about it.
I'm not sure that our producer who witnessed this thought that she was smiling at the proceedings or thought anything was funny. I think the impression that our producer got was that she was very much smiling at her husband, making the eye contact, and that it seemed like a good connection between them. But many of us can't understand how what would go through a wife's mind when your husband of 27 years is arrested with just really damning evidence as the Gilgo Beach serial killer. That's why I'm trying to figure out that the smile. Are they good?
Well, first of all, the first time she saw him was last week, and we keep repeating really damning evidence. The only thing that we have, meaning we, you, me, and the entire world population, is what the prosecution has put out in press statements.
And Ed, I have to stop it right there. He minimizes it. That the probable cause affidavit is damning. It's a lot of evidence, and there's a lot of stuff with his 18 burner phones. Don't quote me on that number, but numerous burner phones, all of the sexual searches, and that's what Banfield was alluding to there, and all of the slimy things that he did, and how the phones of these victims pinged right into his neighborhood and right where his office was in Midtown Manhattan. So, it's funny how Bob Macedonio minimizes this whole thing, Ed. And I see you're shaking your head. Nobody can.
Well, because he's. I mean, listen. Let's be honest. There's no reason for her or him to be in that hearing the other day. No reason other than the fact that they're getting paid to be there.
Bingo, Yahtzee. Don't pass go. You're right, 100%. And anybody that sees anything different needs to get a new pair of spectacles. Let's let the rest of this play, because this gets even hotter here, because now she asks him about if she asked him, her attorney, if it's okay for her to sign with Peacock. And he goes on to say an outlandish, an unbelievable statement.
The defense has said little to nothing. So she's at the point now where she would like to see for herself and hear for herself what are the allegations against her husband. Nobody wants to believe that their spouse, that they laid next to in bed for the 27 years, is capable of these kind of heinous crimes. From the day that he was arrested, she has been told she brought to the police, command center, your husband did this. You were here. He killed this person, put her there. And she's been processing that, trying to recreate 10, 15 years ago where she was and what happened, which is impossible. So she needs to see and hear it for herself, which I think many of us would have to try to believe our spouse is capable of this kind of heinous crime. She sympathizes for the victims. They certainly didn't deserve to die this way. But again, to think that she slept next to and lived with.
That was the first time we heard through her attorney, Asa Ellerup, saying that she sympathizes. That's the first time I ever heard Bob Macedonio say that Asa feels horrible for the victims. First time, right there.
Yeah, he's talking about this information that she's trying to get, and so as if that's the excuse for her appearance at the hearing, but they didn't cover any of that in the hearing. The hearing was scheduling information.
Yeah, that's all it was. It was nothing. But she knows what's out there, and what's out there, he minimized it and said it was really nothing. That we in the public, you, me, the public, we only know what the prosecutor put out. The prosecutor put out a lot of stuff, and we got to look at it and we got to read it out loud, and she got to look and read at the same thing. Now, Ed, I was confused. This is November 15th, 10 days ago. Banfield reported that she was in a Mercedes. This looks like an SUV of some sort. It looks like a Lincoln SUV. I don't see a Mercedes, so I don't know.
To see and hear it for herself, which I think many of us would have to try to believe our spouse is capable of this kind of heinous crime. She sympathizes for the victims. They certainly didn't deserve to die this way. But again, to think that she slept next to and lived with a murderer, a serial killer, she needs to process that on her own, not believe what everybody else is telling her.
Fair enough. I would have it myself, and we're different. I would have a tough time giving a big smile. I would just be very stone-faced, I think, until I saw
I can assure you there was no big smile, and certainly there's nothing to laugh at. She takes it serious.
Yeah.
And there was no, if anything, it might have been a nervous reaction or facial expression. There's no smile.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's talk about the documentary crew.
Here we go.
We're all fascinated about the truck that arrived and loaded in all the camera equipment. And then at court today, the documentary crew was in tow. Tell me about what's going on.
I can't comment on any of that because I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. So I honestly don't know.
I honestly don't know.
You didn't work with her? I mean, I would think she would seek counsel before engaging with any kind of documentary crew, right?
I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that, what's going on with that. She was there to see the proceedings for herself, and that's why she went with me.
All right, fair to say. So
All right, we got Timmy Acosta in the chat, who's a polygraph expert and probably a body language expert. I would love to get Timmy on here with us to break down Bob's reaction to it. Did you see his eyes, Ed? Did you catch anything there?
Yeah, well, he was mincing words, right? He's trying to split hairs. I'm not at liberty. I'm not at liberty to discuss that. Okay, so he knows, but he's not at liberty. All right. What he signed a non-disclosure agreement with the Peacock, with NBC. He signed a non-disclosure agreement to that he can't speak about what's going on with the documentary.
Yeah, and he basically said, and this to me is so shocking. He was like, I don't know anything about it. I honestly don't know anything about it.
Well, he said that in the first answer, but the second answer, he was a little more nuanced.
Right. He's honestly full of shit, is what he is. But anyways, let's let it play again for the audience to hear it.
Nervous reaction or facial expression. There's
no
smile.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's talk about the documentary crews. We're all fascinated about the truck that arrived and loaded in all the camera equipment. And then at court today, the documentary crew was in tow. Tell me about what's going on.
I can't comment on any of that because I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. So I honestly don't know.
You didn't work with her? I mean, I would think she would seek counsel before engaging with any kind of documentary crew, right?
I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that, what's going on with that. She was there to see the proceedings for herself, and that's why she went with me.
All right, fair to say. So the other quick question is, and it's a tough one, there have been some allegations by the police commissioner, by Attorney John Ray, that Asa had some knowledge about the sex workers, was somehow actively involved. These are pretty rough allegations. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
My thought on that, and then she spent a good time, listening to John Ray and his press conferences and also the numerous podcasts that spun off from that. John Ray has spent the past 12 years, and Rex Heuermann is the third individual he's accused of being involved in the homicide of his client. He first accused businessman Jimmy Bissett. Then he went on to former police chief James Burke. Now that there's been an arrest of Rex Heuermann, he now wants to have Rex Heuermann tied to these. John Ray is looking for a civil defendant to attach to his client so he could recoup some of the tens of thousands of dollars he spent out of his pocket. Asa Ellerup is not involved in this, was not involved in this, is not a suspect. The DA's office has emphatically stated at their numerous press conferences and bail applications, she was not in the jurisdiction when these crimes took place. She is not a suspect. She was out of the country, either in Iceland or out of New York State when the alleged homicides took place. So even, hypothetically speaking, she knew about sex workers. She's not alleged to have been involved in knowing about any of the homicides. It's two different factions.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, she didn't know about sex workers. There was no sex workers at the house when she was there. It's just John Ray, a figment of his imagination, creating stuff to, honestly, the press gives him more attention than he deserves.
John Ray is not making this up. It is being told to him by witnesses. This guy
It's sworn affidavits from depositions under the penalty of perjury. This is what the people are saying they witnessed. Now, it's not John Ray, it's the witness. Now, again, they got rid of the police commissioner. Now it's on the district attorney to figure out if what they were saying in those affidavits is true or not. And if they don't do anything with them, shame on them, okay? And if they do, they need to put out to the public what the results of their investigations of these allegations in the sworn affidavits are.
Yeah. For him to go and put this on John Ray is the vehicle for the people to come forward, to be comfortable enough to talk to him. And he goes the extra step. And he actually swore out one of these affidavits with the police commissioner there. He stated it. And Rodney Harrison agreed that he was there and he personally questioned one of his witnesses that came forward. But here, I'm going to put Bob back on the screen and then just play one quick thing.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Sorry. I got Ed to laugh. That was my goal of the show right here.
Thanks, Cameron.
Yes. Well, it is what it is. So yeah, it's just it just is amazing that you hear this coming out of the attorney's mouth. He should be, again, representing his client and at the same time being truthful when he's interviewed by the press. And he wasn't truthful there, in my opinion. You guys could come at me in the comments section there, but that's my thoughts on that. And listen, we have Mary Murphy, who's done an unbelievable job covering this case. Everybody that has common sense is scratching their heads and saying, what in the actual F is going on here when you have Asa Ellerup being followed by the Peacock network with a full camera crew going into court? It's just unbelievable. If just when you think that this case can get twisted and jagaloonish, it is hit Jagaloon 101 to the 10th degree. All right, let's go to the chat. What do you see, Ed? Anything? And I want to say thank you to the moderators who have hung tight with us here tonight. Again, when we speak about this stuff, everybody has their thoughts. There's everything in between. There's people who feel that Asa's right and that she has the right to do this. There's people who feel in between, and then there's people like us that are disgusted by it. And again, like I said, that type of money should, if it was to taken on, should be fast forwarded to the victims' families. Those are the only ones that deserve any type of monetary gain off of the death of their loved ones. And I don't think that they would feel comfortable doing that anyways. Aussie J says all mods are awesome. I agree. Black Rose 11 is here in the building hanging out with us tonight. Miss Donna Marie hanging tough and welcoming and saying everybody. Bucks says easy peasy, lemon squeezy. There you go. Ed, the evidence is what's going to get a guilty verdict in the trial against Rex Heuermann. The evidence is damning. The evidence is there's probably a ton of evidence that we have not heard about that's going to be, look, I have written down here 7 the burner phones, right? But then I have 83, 7 terabytes, which you could fit over 1,250 full-length feature films, over 160,000 photos, and that's 13 years of evidence that they have to look through and put and present in court.
Well, listen, you can have all the evidence in the world. If it's not presented properly in court, then you get acquitted, like O.J. Simpson. Okay, the failure to convict in that case was prosecutorial mistakes that were made, and not putting all the evidence. They had far more evidence than they put in with the Bruno Marley shoes. They should have never agreed to the glove demonstration. I mean, so if mistakes are made by the prosecution in the court, cases can be lost that way as well.
100%, 100%. I'm looking for a thing quickly. If you could just scan the chat, I'm looking for something. I want to just play a little bit of Mary Murphy's coverage because she's really awesome. She's been with this case from the beginning as well.
Now, there was a question while you're doing that. There was a question earlier, which I put up real quick, and somebody took it down. I don't know who, Ron.
Never do that.
You said, what did you think about that, Ed? I didn't understand the question. So if you want to hit me up in the chat again and tell me exactly what the question was about, I'll answer it. Okay.
All right. Here's Mary Murphy's coverage. Ed, you scanned for that question, and I'm sorry that I took it off. I didn't mean it.
And cameras chased Rex Heuermann. A pack of reporters and cameras chased Rex Heuermann's wife into the courthouse.
Just don't block the doorway.
Inside, the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer was dressed in a sharp suit with shirt and tie and briefly glanced back to the spectator section where his estranged wife was sitting.
My understanding is that she doesn't believe that he was capable or committed these acts.
Yet the district attorney, Ray Tierney, indicated the grand jury is ready to vote on another murder Heuermann is the prime suspect in. The defendant's wife kept mum after the hearing.
Ms. Ellerup, how do you think your husband was looking today? Do you have any comments?
Ellerup failed in her bid to get 283 guns back from Suffolk County after they were seized during a search of the Heuermann home and storage lockers. Instead, they were turned over to the police department in Nassau County, the jurisdiction where the family lives. The Suffolk DA has scanned at least 16 years of Heuermann's telephone and financial records.
From going back to the first murder in 2007 that we've been investigating, up until the present time.
Heuermann's defense wants all the investigative notes taken by detectives since 2010, including a suspect focused on by a previous DA, Tim Sini.
Mr. Sini, you folks know that he actually wanted somebody arrested for this crime. His name is not Rex Heuermann. They had another suspect very close to Mr. Heuermann's home in Massapequa Park. We have a lot of evidence, and also we have a lot of forensic evidence.
The DA relying on extensive cell phone data involving Heuermann and some victims' devices to make his case, along with DNA. He revealed the grand jury began its work in June this year.
This initial investigation had to do with the Gilgo 4.
The DA earlier said DNA consistent with Heuermann's wife was found on several Gilgo victims, and one hair on victim Megan Waterman was tied to Rex himself. The defense says
the lab says that he potentially is a donor for that hair. What they don't tell you is there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people just in the metropolitan area that are potentially in that same pool of donors.
The DA's
Ed, I need to get you on screen for this. Did you hear what that attorney just said about the hairs?
Yeah.
Is that
he can't be eliminated? He said he can't be eliminated as the source of that hair. Okay, but if I have to see the statistical analysis that's done by the analyst, because for every DNA sample, when a comparison is made, there will be a statistical analysis that will tell you if he is the only, they'll say like 1 in 100 million people, or 1 in 1 billion, or 1 in 1 trillion could possibly have this same genetic profile that was recovered from the hair or the scene or whatever the case may be, and the suspect. So I would have to see that. I'm not sure that he's articulating that correctly.
Yeah.
I got to see the report.
I kind of knew you were going to say that, but yeah, he seemed to be, citing I'll put it to you this way. The last press conference that we saw of him, he talked about the terabytes and they said, do you have the flash drive with you? And he goes, yeah, it's in my bag. And he was standing right there. He didn't seem to know about tech. And I'm sure that he has experts that are going to come on in defense of Rex Heuermann. But anyways, that was Rex Heuermann's attorney. I want to just go to the chat and recognize the super chatters and the people who left messages. Robbie from Australia sent a super sticker. Thank you for that, Robbie. Kimberly Culp sent $10. Hi, buddies. Ron and Ed. Hi, Kimberly. We appreciate you. Bella Finn, our good friend from, I believe, Ireland, sent super stickers, $7, 99 cents. Thank you for that. Lauren Vande Ever says, I canceled Peacock immediately. Kudos to you. Salty C is a member for 24 months. Thank you, Salty C, for being a member. Laura, again, sending another super chat. She's throwing her pocketbook at us. Hey, her attorney's a snake. I have a story for you. We want to hear it. Send that story into DutyRon.com. I'm always looking at the emails coming in. Clarabelle, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We appreciate that. Don't we, Ed?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Mystique has been a member for 8 months, and she says, I come for the facts, and I stay for the great people. That's awesome. Robbie sent in another super chat. He's throwing his wallet at us again tonight. I hope for law enforcement, there's no naked pictures of Asa in the evidence. They will suffer from PTSD. That's not nice, Robbie, but I understand. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions. Juke, the Jukester. So was this the question I took off?
No, her hair on the girls means nothing except they were in the house. Not necessarily. That's not what the hair means. It's trace transfer evidence. So they don't have to. The victims don't have to have been in the house to have Rex transfer his wife's hair to them. He could have done that outside of the house, in the car, or any other location that he was with them. Of course, her hair could easily transfer to Rex's clothing, or hair could be easily in Rex's vehicle, and then the transfer could occur those ways, amongst others. So, just want to clarify that.
The office has turned over.
So I want to play before we wrap up because we're getting close to the hour. There was a little bit of Ray Tierney, the district attorney. He went on and gave a 10-minute press conference. Obviously, we can't play the whole press conference because it's 10 minutes. But he said a few things during his press conference that were, again, redundant, and some of it was surprising because he was asked about John Ray and former police commissioner Rodney Harrison and the information that came forward. And he almost, did you hear this press conference, Ed, or no?
I heard part of it. I didn't hear what you're about to play, though.
He somewhat dismissed. He sounded like he was dismissive of it. And I'm hoping that that's not the case, but that's how I read it. Somebody asked about Jagaloons in the chat. She said, I'm new here. What's a Jagaloon? So here's the Jagaloon lane sign. And Jagaloons are adults that act like children. And there's tons of that out there. Jagaloons, we use that a lot here, that term. But thank you for asking about it, because if you don't know about it, just Google it. If you Google Jagaloon, just spelled just this way, right? If you Google Jagaloon, you'll see. It'll come up. It'll be interesting. An interesting read for you. All right, let's listen to this. And this is right after this this hearing that they had. And he spent 10 minutes outside of the courthouse. We saw Attorney Melanie Little 2 court appearances ago out at the same little area where the press meets. But let's listen to a little bit.
Over, it's a little bit more difficult for me to turn over what's happened, 12 years in the past with, and we just want to do it in a way that we can be confident that we've given them everything, and we have everything, and we've turned it over in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, he's a prime suspect for a 4th possible murder. Where are you guys with that?
So, yep. How are you? So the grand jury is continuing. and the grand jury and that matter is continuing. We anticipate it concluding shortly, and once it does, and if the grand jury acts, we'll make comment on that. But we won't do so until the grand jury process has concluded, just like we did with the 3 charged crimes.
Is there a date on when the grand jury is done?
There's an outside date, which could be extended, but
when you say shortly, is that days, weeks, or months?
shortly. Well, grand jury, you go where the evidence takes you. So, especially when you're at the end of an investigation, you're bringing in, extraneous matters and potential witnesses, and that's not always, subject to your schedule. So you sort of have to work through that. So we're going to, tie all those things up, and then when we're concluded with it, we'll bring it in. But we're not gonna set a time to it or a specific date to it, because it's evidence based. It's not time based.
Do you feel like you have enough evidence to charge him in the court?
Do you feel like you have enough evidence?
It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what I can do and what I will do. Or what we will do. So we'll wait until that process is concluded. And it's just a process that you have to work through that, we haven't done so yet.
At this point, do you anticipate extending the grand jury?
I'm sorry?
Sorry. At this point, do you expect to extend the grand jury?
No, we don't.
They asked if he was going to extend the grand jury.
So as we said right from the onset, this case, this initial investigation had to do with the Gilgo 4. We've charged 3 out of the 4 victims, which were primarily known as the Gilgo 4. That 4th case is winding down, and since we've become overt with the announcement of the original indictment, we have been working on those other cases and investigating it. That investigation will continue.
So there's no grand jury for the other 6 sets of remains.
The specific grand jury which we're working on pertains to the Gilgo 4.
And one follow-up question: you're very aware there was a press conference where the police commissioner Rodney Harrison attended with John Ray, a private attorney. He put out a statement after that. Have you looked at any of those affidavits about whether Rex Heuermann might have been tied to Karen Borgata, the Fire Island Jane Doe?
Yeah. So I as I said, I did release a statement with regard to that, and with regard to what we look at a great many things. We don't disclose what we look at. There's an investigative purpose behind that. So we've talked to, I could tell you we've talked to hundreds of witnesses, but we don't disclose who we talk to, and that's just a policy of ours. So we're gonna maintain that policy.
Those 75 pages that haven't been turned over, he said they were from the commencement of the grand jury. What do they pertain to?
All right. So did you see that? How his whole body language changed when she asked that question, and that was Mary Murphy. I know you heard her voice. She asked about the press conference with John Ray and former police commissioner Rodney Harrison. And I mean, I don't know, what kind of vibe did you get from that response, Ed?
Well, a couple things. One, he said that the grand jury is specific for the Gilgo Beach 4.
Yes.
So all the other victims are not in the grand jury. Okay. So is the task force not investigating those other victims? Are they just concentrating on these 4? And he says, we've interviewed a lot of people. I'm not going to talk about what they said or who we interviewed. Anybody can make that statement. How do you prove it's true?
Yeah. And we heard them many a time say that they're following any and all leads wherever it takes them. You heard it from Rodney Harrison, and you heard it from this guy. This is only 3 minutes out of a 10-minute and 17-second video. The properties outside of New York State, South Carolina, all of the different searches, that all will not be revealed because it's part of an ongoing investigation. Law enforcement, and he alludes to this several times in this interview. I'll link it in the description. The district attorney alludes to that we're not in the business of releasing information that we're investigating. And that's a good thing. I am all in on that. He says several times that we are not in the business of trying cases in the press. I'm all in on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing. Ed, we're at the hour mark, and I want to wrap up with this, but I have to say that my personal feeling is, I put it out there in the beginning of this. I put it out in the middle, and I'll now put it out at the end. I do not feel that anybody who is a spouse or a direct relative of someone who stands accused, and now he's not convicted, but he's indicted on 3 murders that took place on Long Island, very notorious murders, and he's looking at a 4th indictment on this Gilgo Beach Long Island serial killer case. I don't feel that anybody who's associated, whether it's a direct family like his wife and his children, or even his relatives, brother-in-law, his sister-in-law, anybody that's attached to Rex Heuermann should not be benefiting from this. We saw the $60,000 GoFundMe from the Happy Face serial killer's daughter. That was, something that she came to Long Island from California and gussied up with Asa Ellerup early on in this thing, and because of her notoriety and her podcast and all the things that she does, she was able to get her over $60,000. And there was a lot of people who felt really different ways about that. But at the end of the day, it's about the victims and their families, and that's the only people that should benefit or receive benefits, and they need it. God knows that they need it. Those families need as much support as they can get, but there's no talk of that. So, Ed, I wanted to go to you on your thoughts and your feelings.
Well, again, I'm pretty close to what you feel there about the wife and the children benefiting from evil that their father and husband had done. I don't think that's a good thing. But again, he's innocent until proven guilty. So right now, he's indicted. He'll go to court. They'll be tried. And if he's convicted of these things, I don't feel the family should get any money from the evil deeds that their father and spouse did. And even especially if they can prove that it was done in the house there. Now, I'm not about that. They shouldn't profit in any way, shape, or form from something bad that their loved one had did. Now, that said, can we switch things up a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something that you wanted to present from the previous live stream we did. If you guys know, we covered the now vehicle accident that happened at the bridge up by the Canadian border in Niagara County. And Ed, you had some things that you wanted to maybe show.
I was just going to show you folks some of the tools that we could use at the crime scene to help us determine if explosives were present at that scene. So I'm going to try to show you this. So let me see if I can get this to work.
I'm confident that you can. And I want to thank everyone for subscribing here tonight, for hitting the thumbs up. We always appreciate when you guys can hit the thumbs up for Ed and I. We're working hard to show you things and present things to you. And Ed here now is going to show you. This is part of your toolkit, Ed. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is part of my toolkit. This is my crime scene. So this is a wet chemistry kit. And as you can see, it contains 6 chemical reagents. It's called DropX Plus. The chemicals will react with the components of certain explosives. And then you see on the bottom a piece of paper that has different colors on it. And in the presence of those explosives with these chemicals, if you get any of these color changes, and it flips up, there's additional color changes, then it tells you that these explosives are potentially present at the scene. Now, this rectangular piece right here, I don't know if you see my mouse.
I do.
All right, that is a QA/QC test. That paper has explosive residues in them, and you drop the chemicals on them and to make sure that they're still working before you use them at the scene. And if it turns colors, then your chemicals are working. These arrow are the adhesive papers that you would use to swab surfaces and drop the chemicals on to see if you can find these explosive. So this is just one of many. Here's another. So this is the high pressure mass spectrometer. It's called a 908. It's a field portable unit that can do both vapors and trace, just just like you would go to the airport where they swab the handles of your suitcase or items in your suitcase, and then you can insert that paper into this unit, and it uses a thermal desorber, which means basically it'll ramp up heat and vaporize the particles that are on the paper, which gets sucked into the unit by a vacuum, and then goes through the analysis, and it'll tell you
this on the live stream that we did on this case when we were covering this. You mentioned this. I remember this.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of many.
I feel like this is Forensic Friday. Is it Friday? No,
it's Forensic Saturday.
Forensic Saturday. There you go.
Okay, so down here is the FIDO X4 by FLIR, forward-looking infrared, and it's using amplifying fluorescence polymer, and it'll detect trace explosive materials. Where again, you take a swab, you insert the swab into this area right here. It locks down and it ramps heat over it. Again, it's a thermal desorber and pumps vaporizes the particles, the latent particles into the unit, conduct the analysis. Now I can take this front half of this off, and then it turns into basically a sniffer where it'll suck an air sample in and conduct the analysis over vapors. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, so this is a combination unit. This is called the Gemini analyzer, and it does Raman spectrometry and FTIR, Fourier transfer infrared. So it's capable of conducting two types of chemical analysis. One, I can using Raman, I can either take a sample of powder or residue, stick it into a vial, and then stick that vial right in there and conduct the analysis. Or on the side over here is a flexible wand with a laser tip end, and I can stick the laser right into the material or through a glass that contains the material and so forth, and shoot the laser into it to conduct the analysis. And this is the FTIR section right here. I put a small amount of the product on here, take this anvil and crush it onto the top of that diamond tip and conduct the analysis of that for explosive residues.
Do you feel like all of this stuff was used up in Niagara, up at the border of New York and Canada?
I don't know that it was, but they definitely have access to it. Most crime scene units, bomb squads, as well as hazmat teams have these items. The FBI surely has them.
Yeah.
Okay. This one up here, this is called a multi-ray, or what we call a 5-gas meter. And it has several sensors in it. One of them is a photoionization detector, which will help us determine volatile organic compounds. The other one that we're talking about here is an LEL sensor, and the LEL stands for the lower explosive limit. So if you have flammable fumes or vapors or explosives, vapors and things of that nature, this unit could help you detect those materials that might be present to cause an issue and for safety while you're operating in that environment. The bottom part is radiological, so we're not going to cover that.
Fascinating.
And then the bottom one here is just another colorimetric test, but the one test concerning explosives would be the oxidizer paper, the oxidizer test paper, which is this right here, the potassium iodide paper. You need two components to make an explosive. You need an oxidizer and you need a fuel. So if that is present, then the oxidizer paper will turn black in the presence of that type of material.
Wow. So this is all stuff that, common folk wouldn't know anything about, and it helps to determine whether in a situation like what we saw up there, if need be. And I don't think that they had to go that far. Thank you for that, Ed, because that really, I'm gonna ask Kristen to clip that part of this back end of this live stream, and then we'll upload that as a short so people can get a little bit of an education as it pertains to investigations where explosive devices could be potentially or possibly utilized. So this is cool stuff. Cat 747 says, inspect the gadget.
Go gadget.
Yeah, there you go. A couple of people were chiming in with a question as it pertains still to Rex Heuermann. And so here, will the trial be held in Nassau or Suffolk? It's going to be held in Suffolk County in 2024 if it kicks off in 2024. I anticipate that it should kick off sometime in 2024. But don't be surprised because things run very slowly in Nassau and Suffolk County. So it could potentially happen in 2025. They're not in any rush to go forward, but I think that there are some time constraints that they have to abide by. So we'll see how that goes. What else? We got another super chat that came in, a super sticker. While yet still today sends in $5. And let's show this little piece that Timmy Acosta sent to us. In God we trust, all others we polygraph. He wanted to polygraph Asa Ellerup. I wonder if she would agree to that. I'm sure she would if we paid her. Oh my.
Oh, hell no.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Ed, do you see anything good in the chat? Or
Well, there was just a question about the oxidizer. Just folks, when an explosive detonates, or depending on what type of explosive it is, not all the material gets consumed. Everybody just thinks everything gets consumed and there's no evidence. Well, that's not true at all. A lot of the materials, like for instance, ammonium nitrate, fuel oil, ANFO. So you take ammonium nitrate, which is fertilizer, that's your oxidizer, and you mix it with diesel fuel, and now you have a tertiary high explosive that requires a secondary explosives and a primary explosive to detonate it. First, the primary detonates the second, and then the secondary detonates the tertiary. And not all of it gets consumed. So you'll find pellets of the ammonium nitrate still around, and using that oxidizer paper, you can get a positive result for oxidizer.
Awesome.
I hope that answers your question.
That answered it, and then some. Ed, it's always educational when it comes to you. And I see Ed is just working the switchboard right there. He's just looking at all the chat. He's ready and willing to answer any questions. We have to do a Forensic Friday in the near future because there's so many people who have so many questions. And I remember the time when we did the bloodstain pattern analysis and the that whole spread when you sent me all that information and that demonstration and I thought it was almost like it was like one of your training classes. It was an hour and 15 minutes. And I thought it was so educational and people loved it. So maybe we'll put something like that together for you guys. We have merch that says it's, oh, okay. What happened, Ed?
Yeah. It's spatter, not splatter.
There you go. We have merch that says that. I was highlighting that, by the way. Aussie J says, yes, please. Forensic Friday. Everybody loves it. All right, guys, on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to say thank you for joining us on this holiday weekend. We had Thanksgiving on Thursday. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of you who were, spending it with time with family and friends, or even if you were spending it alone, we did a live stream Thanksgiving evening. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I did a members only today. So if you're not yet a member or if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, all one word, DutyRon. Make sure you hit the thumbs up for Ed and I. It helps the algorithm. Share this onto your social media platform and engage with us. We love the comments. Ed, I know, loves the comments. I do too. I try to answer as many of them as I can. Not a lot of creators will answer as many comments as possible. I pride myself and make it a point. If you leave me a comment or Ed a comment and it's a question or if it's something that's important to you, I try the best that I can to get back to you. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So I do the best that I can. And some questions I answer a month later if I miss them, but I answer them all. People like, holy shit, I left that comment 3 months ago and you're answering it today. Well, I missed it. And now I found it and then I answered it. So I hope you guys appreciate that. And I thank you for being here. And as I always like to end these, God bless all of us here in the chat, the world, and our good friends and people who are struggling. I send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to everybody here. Ed, I know you got something to say, and we'll take it out after this.
Okay, folks, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We really do appreciate you watching. Good night.